America has always sold the idea of opportunity, but what happens when that promise starts to fade?
A vote for Trump is a vote for hate!
For decades, people have crossed plains, seas, and borders, chasing a dream they believed would never run out. They arrived with hope, with grit, with nothing left to risk. But that dream is shifting.
They rescinded our work permits. They've taken away all our opportunities.
Right now, the country is pulled in two directions: compassion or control, a land of chances or a nation ruled by fear. I've spent months following this story at the border, in shelters, and on streets where so many are overlooked. This isn't just policy, it's people, and the question of who we really are.
Right now, we're all at the same risk of being deported, even though we made an official application.
Let me start by saying this plainly. Choosing to enter the United States without papers is not a decision anyone makes casually. I've met families who gave up everything, leaving the only homes they've ever known, because staying would have meant something far worse. For decades, people from Central America, South America, and many other parts of the world have come here searching for safety, steady work, and the possibility of a better future. They're not seeking adventure or quick rewards. They're escaping streets ruled by violence, children going hungry, and communities overwhelmed by crises their governments either fail to control or refuse to confront. I've watched people cross vast deserts, push their way through rivers, and place their trust in smugglers who promise protection but often lead them straight into danger. Many truly believe that courage and determination will be enough. But again and again, what I see is not recklessness, it's desperation. When home offers nothing but danger, hunger, or despair, even the riskiest path can look like a lifeline. Why do they keep coming? Because hope, even when fragile, beats fear every single time. But this issue stretches far beyond individual bravery. It affects the communities along the border too. Classrooms become overcrowded, hospitals struggle to keep up, and local police departments are pushed to their limits. People who live in these areas feel that pressure every day. And it makes me wonder, do these real day-to-day challenges justify turning away people running for their lives? Or does our sense of humanity call us to find a better way? I think about the stories behind all those statistics. A mother leaving her kids with relatives, walking for days just to keep them safe. A teenager running from a gang that has terrorized their neighborhood for years. Fathers risking everything so their children might grow up with chances they never had. These are not the criminals some politicians make them out to be. They are parents, young people with dreams, survivors doing what they must. Their journey may be illegal on paper, but it is powered by survival, by love, and by the belief in a better tomorrow.
We've had money, but it goes towards the kids, right away. You know, kids need something, we get it. So we can't really necessarily buy things that could help us get out of the hole that we're in.
Watching all this unfold, even through a camera lens, you can feel the weight of the choices they face and the responsibility we carry in how we respond. When I think about Trump's immigration policies, I feel a mix of disbelief and frustration. Policies that were supposed to protect the nation often ended up trapping real people in situations they couldn't escape. I read the headlines, listened to the speeches, but nothing could prepare me for the reality behind those words, the faces, the fear, the families. The wall along the southern border became the most visible symbol, a massive promise of security that also sent a powerful message of exclusion. It wasn't just steel and concrete, it was a dividing line between hope and despair. Families who once believed they might start over were suddenly met with another wall, one that was physical, political, and deeply emotional. Then came the Remain in Mexico policy. I still can't forget the stories and images of families stranded in border towns, with barely enough food, shelter, or safety, waiting endlessly as their asylum cases crawled through a system that often seemed blind to their suffering. I've met people who spent months, even years, living in fear, not because they broke the law, but because they tried to follow it. Imagine doing everything right, filling out every form, showing up for every hearing, yet going to bed every night wondering if tomorrow might bring danger, deportation, or separation from your children. The administration also made it harder to get visas, limited work permits, and created uncertainty around programs like DACA. I know young people who grew up here, who went to American schools, spoke English, pledged a flag, and still feared their lives could be torn apart overnight. Parents lived with that same fear, making every choice as if one wrong move could destroy everything they'd built. What kind of country allows that kind of fear to exist for people who are simply trying to live by the rules? What struck me most was the paradox. While these policies claimed to discourage illegal crossings, they often drove people to take even greater risks. People kept coming, crossing rivers, deserts, and danger, not because they ignored the law, but because the law gave them no real way out. Even those who followed every rule found themselves stuck, waiting, unsure if their patience would ever be rewarded. In the end, I can't separate these policies from the human cost. Behind every regulation are mothers, fathers, and children who carry the weight of political choices they never made. They dreamed of safety, stability, and a place to belong. But in the shadow of rigid enforcement, those dreams were postponed, disrupted, or denied. Watching it all unfold, I can't help but feel that America is caught between two powerful forces, law and compassion, and somewhere in between, too many lives hang in the balance. Even in 2025, with Trump back in office, the number of people trying to enter the United States without papers hasn't slowed down. In some regions, it has actually intensified. Every day, I hear new stories. Families walking for hours, teenagers making the journey alone, parents doing everything possible to protect their kids from the dangers they escaped. These are not statistics. These are human beings carrying fear, hope, and resilience. Yet, too often, they get reduced to headlines, political debates, or campaign speeches. Along the border, I've seen communities struggling under constant pressure. Shelters are overflowing, classrooms are packed, and hospitals are operating far beyond their capacity. Families sleep in cars or makeshift tents. Children go without essentials, and local systems are pushed to the breaking point. Policies designed to slow illegal immigration often collide with the desperation that fuels it. People don't stop coming just because the border is tighter or enforcement is tougher. They keep moving because hunger, violence, and chaos in their home countries leave them with no other choice. And the struggle doesn't end once they cross. Many migrants travel to cities across the country in search of stability, work, and a place to belong. But even there, the challenges continue. Affordable housing is scarce, social programs are overloaded, and finding consistent work can feel like an impossible task. Even those who arrive legally, with all the right documents, often get trapped in endless paperwork, waiting months or even years for basic approvals. Some eventually fall into homelessness, joining the growing population of homeless in America, a harsh reminder of how policy failures and human need collide. I can't help but wonder, how can a nation built on opportunity allow such a gap to exist? How do we demand law, order, and control when so many people are left in limbo, living with fear and uncertainty every day? Every migrant carries a story, a reason for the risks they took, and a belief, sometimes the only thing they have left, that America might give them a real chance. And despite everything working against them, their courage is undeniable. Families continue to walk, cross rivers, survive deserts, and pass through checkpoints because hope is stronger than fear. Hope that their children will be safe, that their families will endure, that somewhere here they can build a future that isn't constantly slipping away. Watching all of this unfold, it becomes clear that conversations about illegal immigration must start with the people themselves, not just with borders, policies, or numbers. Behind every crossing is a life at stake. And too often, those lives end up among the homeless in America, showing just how deeply our systems fall short. The effects of immigration reach far beyond the border. I've watched entire communities pushed to their limits, small towns in Texas, Arizona, and California, trying to provide basic services while welcoming families who arrive with nothing more than hope in their hand. Local hospitals hit full capacity, clinics run low on supplies, and schools struggle to give every child the attention they deserve. It's not just statistics. It's people's lives changing in ways that weigh heavily on both the newcomers and the longtime residents. What stays with me most is how hidden many of these impacts are. While politicians argue on TV and pundits talk in circles, the real costs show up in quiet, everyday moments. Families who come legally often end up in temporary housing that's overcrowded, unsafe, or far too expensive. Young parents work multiple jobs, yet still can't afford rent, transportation, or childcare. Kids move from one classroom to another, sometimes learning in hallways or converted storage areas, carrying the stress of constant instability. For many of them, this path leads dangerously close to becoming part of the homeless in America, a reality rarely mentioned in public discussion. Rural towns experience this pressure differently, but just as intensely. These areas don't have the infrastructure or social programs that big cities do, so even one family in crisis can stretch resources meant for dozens. I've walked through places where volunteers do everything possible to fill the gaps, yet the distance between what people need and what communities can provide is painfully clear. It raises a hard question. Is it reasonable to expect small towns to bear the weight of global problems, war, poverty, environmental collapse, that began thousands of miles away. Beyond the numbers and headlines, there's a social burden that can't be measured in money. Migrants often face isolation, judgment, and constant uncertainty. Simple things like going to the grocery store or walking a child to school come with layers of fear. Fear of being judged, mistreated, or caught up in legal issues. Mental health struggles grow quietly, shaped by anxiety, trauma, and the pressure of trying to survive. Children living in these conditions get pulled into cycles they didn't create, missing out on stability and opportunities that others don't even think twice about. When I look at all of this, I can't help but think about what it says about a country that prides itself on freedom and opportunity, yet lets so many new arrivals fall into hardship, invisibility, and uncertainty. Each family, each person is more than a number. They're people trying to rebuild their lives in a place that promises safety but often delivers challenges. Their courage is real, their resilience extraordinary, and their stories deserve recognition, compassion, and action. Talking about immigration in the United States feels like walking straight into a storm. Every discussion is charged, every viewpoint feels heavy, and somehow the real people behind the debate often disappear. I've listened to voices on both sides. Some argue that strict enforcement is the only way to protect jobs, maintain order, and keep neighborhoods safe. Others say the laws themselves ignore a deeper reality, that people are running from danger, searching for a chance to live, and deserve compassion as much as caution. Under Trump's presidency, this tension has only grown sharper. The policies and the rhetoric focus on control, deterrence, and border security, while the human fallout happens quietly in the background. I've seen families sitting in shelters or crowded public buildings, unsure whether tomorrow will bring separation, deportation, or a small window of hope. Children ask questions their parents cannot answer, and every new legal hurdle feels like another wall rising in front of them. Watching political arguments on TV or in campaign speeches can feel disconnected from these realities, yet the effects are immediate, concrete, and often heartbreaking. This national conversation is more than political, it is moral. People across America wrestle with hard questions. How do we secure the border without losing our value? How do we uphold the law without abandoning those who need help? How do we acknowledge the challenges immigration brings while still honoring basic humanity? And maybe the hardest question of all, how do we prevent policies meant to protect the country from unintentionally adding to the growing number of homeless in America? These are not theoretical questions. They strike at the heart of what it means to be a society that believes in both justice and mercy. I've met volunteers, attorneys, and social workers who deal with these conflicts every single day. They open their doors, their offices, and their hearts to families in crisis, often doing more than the system ever does. They offer food, temporary shelter, medical access, and legal guidance, but they also give something harder to quantify: dignity, reassurance, and the feeling that someone sees them, truly sees them. But even with all their efforts, the need is enormous. Resources are stretched thin, and for every family helped, many more wait, struggle, and remain unseen. What stays with me most is the resilience, both from the families risking everything for a better life and from those trying to support them despite limited tools. It reminds me that immigration is not simply a policy issue. it is a human issue. Decisions made in Washington, shouted at rallies, or debated in courtrooms ripple into living rooms, shelters, and streets across the country. Every rule, every speech, every enforcement order touches real lives. These are children who deserve stability, parents who deserve hope, and families who deserve the chance to rebuild. As I watch all of this unfold, I keep coming back to one thought. A nation's true strength isn't measured only by its borders or its laws, but by its ability to balance fairness with compassion, enforcement with empathy, and security with humanity. Until we find that balance, the debate will rage on, and the people living out the consequences will remain in the shadows, waiting for a country that sees them not as problems to control, but as human lives worth protecting. When I think about immigration, I keep coming back to the people behind the policies. These are individuals who wake up every morning with uncertainty weighing on them, standing in long lines, navigating complicated paperwork, and waiting months or even years just to secure a place in the country they hoped for. Some come through the legal process, following every rule, only to find out the system works against them. Others take dangerous risks because it feels like the only way to find safety and opportunity. And in both situations, too many end up struggling to survive, sometimes becoming part of the rising
Somebody's getting arrested across the street. Moves pretty quick.
It's easy to talk about borders and laws from a distance, but the truth is far more complex and far more human. Families live with the constant fear of being separated. Children grow up carrying stress they cannot fully explain. Parents work endlessly, yet still face limited support and uncertain futures. These aren't political sound bites. They are real lives filled with courage, perseverance, and vulnerability. Each story exposes the flawed idea that rules alone can fix the challenges of migration. I think about the courage it takes to walk away from everything familiar, stepping into the unknown with nothing but hope. I see the determination in young people trying to earn an education, in parents juggling multiple jobs, and in families doing whatever they can to protect each other from harm. They remind me that the human spirit doesn't bend easily to policies or political speeches. Yet when systems fail them, the fallout is severe, missed opportunities, fractured families, and a cycle of hardship that can push people straight onto the streets. As a country, we are judged by how we respond to these realities. Can we enforce our laws while still seeing the humanity of those caught in the middle? Can we build a society where opportunity doesn't end in exhaustion and despair? These questions aren't for the future. They're staring us in the face right now. And as we look deeper into this issue, the next story brings us closer to a painful truth. Why so many young people pour their time, savings, and hope into coming here legally, only to be told there are too many immigrants and they may be
collecting their
turned
cardboard for the night. The Cybertruck giving out.
In the next video, we'll explore this tension, uncovering the human cost behind the dream America promises, and the reality that many encounter when they arrive.